I was in shock from the crash. I could hardly stay on my feet.
Hello, my name is Mikael Kasurinen and I'm the lead game designer of Alan Wake. This is a video game commentary that spans throughout the whole game. Commentators will appear like this on the screen every time there's something that we like to talk about. But be aware that this commentary is full of spoilers. If you haven't played the game yet and you want to experience this as it was meant to be played, stop now, go back to the option screen and turn off the commentary. You can always come back later. This commentary is location based, so every time you hear a commentary that you want to listen to, stop moving and don't try to advance to the next location. Feel free to look around, but moving forward to the level might actually override the existing commentary. The only way to replay a comment is to restart the last checkpoint. Now, enjoy the commentary and have fun.
Hiya, my name is Tim Lundqvist. I'm one of the level designers of Alan Wake.
Hello, my name is Tero Tosa. I'm a senior environment artist at Remedy.
Hi, I'm Mikko Rautalahti and I'm a writer here at Remedy. Here we are in the very beginning of Alan Wake. Since dreams and dreamlike states are a big deal for us, it's kind of fitting that we start things off with a good old-fashioned nightmare. We also do a couple of other things here though. For example, we introduced Thomas Zane. We don't call him that yet, but that's what the big floating ball of light is. And we also do a tutorial here, and it was actually kind of challenging because it's not very easy to marry the idea of a story introduction and a tutorial together, but you know, I think we did an okay job.
I was trapped. There was no way out. The cabin was a death trap. I had to get out.
Follow the light.
The light pole that you see in front of you is a crucial piece in the gameplay of Alan Wake. We call them safe haven. It's a spot of light in the midst of darkness. It provides you safety. While the enemies actually don't want to go into light, they also heal the player faster and acts as guidance for the player. Every time you see light in front of you, that's usually a good direction to take.
Lies a deeper, darker ocean green, where waves are both wilder and more serene. To its ports I beam. To its ports I beam. Do you understand?
No.
Follow my light. I entered your dream to teach you. The darkness is dangerous. It's sleeping now.
In this scene, the diver takes control over Wake's dream to teach him how to fight the forces of darkness. The basic concept is simple. You turn the light on top of Taken and you can see the darkness burning away. After that, you are able to defeat Taken with your revolver. This is a good opportunity to see how the light mechanics work. Turn the light on top of him and you can actually see a small halo forming around him. The halo gets smaller, the less darkness there's left. and you can clearly see a light effect when the shield is burned away. The combat mechanics were always designed around the idea that you face multiple enemies at once. In this tutorial you only get one enemy at a time, but in the field that comes after this you get 2 or 3 enemies at the same time. Then you get the proper feel of how the combat works. Be careful on who you're concentrating on, because someone else might actually be flanking you and trying to hit you in the back.
In the nightmare, a terrible darkness was taking over the world. The lighthouse was the last safe place on Earth.
You met me this way, and now I'm gonna kill you. This is it, Witch! You're dead, just like me. Die! I can keep this up forever!
Let's act like we're on vacation. Go stand next to that old gentleman.
The events of the game take place in the Pacific Northwest region of the United States. This is a beautiful region that has in the past been featured in numerous TV shows and movies, like The Shining and Twin Peaks. It's famous and recognizable for many things, like fishing and mining and huge redwood tree trunks the size of a bus, beautiful lighthouses. But I think the most recognizable and beautiful feature is the nature. It's an oceanic climate combined with huge mountain ranges and dark forests. The cool thing about it is that there's an enormous amount of moisture constantly flowing in from the Pacific Ocean, and when it hits the mountains it turns into fog. So the end result of that is that almost everywhere you look there's these dense wisps of fog lazily crawling on the mountains and hillsides, and it really lends the area an almost otherworldly feel.
I'm sure you understand. Fair enough. You can trust me to be discreet. Not a hard man to track down if you change your mind, though. I hope you two have a lovely holiday.
Very nice. I got a couple of really good ones. And I see you made a friend. That's cute.
Right. Yeah?
Hey, bestseller. How's my favorite writer? Are you there yet?
Barry. Yeah. We just got here.
Are the locals giving you trouble? Just say the word and I'll hop on a plane and come make sure that you're left alone, Al.
No, Barry, we're fine.
Great, great. Just want to make sure you can relax and recharge. So, how is the place? Has it gotten your creative juices flowing?
Barry, we're just settling in.
Okay, Al. I'll call back later to make sure you're doing okay. And you call me if there's a problem, okay? Okay. I'm just looking out for you, buddy. Talk to you later.
I love you too, Barry.
You know he's going to be calling you every 5 minutes.
Barry is Barry. I can always turn off the phone.
What did I tell you?
Text message from Barry. He says hi to you too.
Alan, we're here. Come on, let's get back to the car. I can't. I've got all your books.
Diners are the very essence of traditional Americana and the hearts of small-town communities, such as Bright Falls. There being so many of them, and many of them looking very much like each other, source material for this location was always going to be plentiful. But even so, from the start, we had a certain one in mind. If you can remember a certain...
Cauldron Lake is a special place. Very inspiring.
You got lucky this time, young man. You can hurt yourself in the dark.
Even that sounds better than your singing.
Are you all right?
The Andersons, they're, local musicians. We're waiting for Dr. Hartman to come pick them up.
Bye, Mr. Wake. Wow. It's gorgeous, Alan.
It's something, all right. Don't worry, honey. I'll get you inside safe and sound before it gets dark. And I've got the flashlight.
I know. I'm okay.
Alice had a phobia. The fear of darkness. I wanted to make sure we were inside with the lights on.
Bird Lake Cabin is an idyllic, a little rundown but nevertheless beautiful cabin nestled in a small island on the Cauldron Lake. But not all about it is as it seems. You see, in the 70s there was a big eruption and the whole island sank and it took down the cabin with it. So it shouldn't really exist. Yet somehow it does.
Here we go. Let's take a look inside.
The original idea for the Bird Lake Cabin was that it was actually alive, that it would roam about in the forests at night, rising onto its legs that would at daytime look like bird leg-shaped roots sticking out from under it. In the end, the story evolved into having the name of Bird Lake Cabin simply derive from the peculiar shape of the island and also from the frontal facade of the building, where a chimney, which looks like a beak, and two round windows looked like its face, and two porches, one on either side, looked like its wings.
I'll freshen up a bit and start settling in.
Okay, I'll look around a bit.
Sure thing. Have fun.
We spend a lot of time talking about Alice in the game, but we don't actually see all that much of her because she disappears. That's why it was very important for us to establish her as a major force in Wake's life in the very beginning of the game.
Alice?
Their relationship is very interesting because Alice is actually a lot smarter and stronger than Wake is. She's capable of manipulating him and...
Surprise!
The cabin had gone dark. All the lights were out.
Alan Wake has a lot of problems. His marriage is failing, he's suffering from the results of extremely poor impulse control, and frankly, the guy is a bit of a dick. He's not a bad writer, he's definitely a decent one, and obviously he's been very successful.
Alice?
Keep going.
Designing the environments, we are making full use of the diversity of nature in Pacific Northwest region.
It looked like a long hike through the
In this episode, we find Alan Wake crashed in a car, unable to climb back to the road, and facing a long hike through the forest to reach a distant gas station where he hopes to find help. The area is a rocky, forested valley. He has to go through a logging site and also a marshland that follows the bottom of the valley and a river crossing. In the end, there is a vintage old gas station to explore, so...
Well, as you can see, Wake has just found his first manuscript pages. They just sort of floated down from an unearthly light. And the manuscript is really one of our main storytelling tools in the whole thing, and one of our most important concepts in the entire game. And that stuff was actually really difficult to write because, you know, you don't have a lot of space there. You have a couple of paragraphs, and you kind of need to be able to tell a little story there.
Yeah, and I also think that manuscript pages are a big part of the whole Alan Wake experience. While it also tells a lot about the world itself, it also gives you a really deep history of different characters in the game.
Yeah, and it feels kind of natural too because, you know, we sort of made the pages a part of the whole...
Please! Hey!
trying. It's the latest thing. Incontestably proven. Health. Let you.
Great Falls Sheriff Station. How may I...
Hello? Sight and keep those cholesterol levels.
This is bad.
Even though most of the enemies attack you with melee weapons, some of them are able to use ranged weapons as well. I think it's way cooler when somebody's throwing stuff at you instead of shooting. Or maybe I just got tired of that in the previous games.
My head pounded with a concussion. I'd never fired a gun outside a shooting range, and now I just killed someone. Or something. There were no bodies. They just disappeared. If I was dreaming, it felt real enough to make me sick. The dark forest was the last place I wanted to go, but I had no choice. I had to get to the gas station. What the hell was that? When I saw the river below, something uncoiled itself inside my head. I realized that I had to find a way across.
Wake's newfound fear of water is a result of his plunge into Cauldron Lake. Of course, at this point in the story, he doesn't know what happened to him, he doesn't remember any of it, but you know, on some subconscious level, he knows that he's been violated, and he associates that with the water.
Stucky was still out there, in the dark, stalking me.
Is that hazardous occupation?
The staircase was broken. I had to make my way up some other way. The gas station was closer now. Its light welcoming in the dark.
Most of the gameplay locations we have in the game incorporate the idea of a journey into them. It basically means that we try to show where player is coming from and where he's going to as often as possible. In the beginning of episode 1, this meant that we showed the lighthouse whenever possible, and of course now we use the gas station in similar role.
Here we can see some of the nasty names that we have. We call them flankers because they try to circle around you and stab you in the back. Though they are quite easy to take out.
For the day! We enjoy the magnificent!
The journey from the crashed car onwards has seen a steady escalation of suspense, and now we're wrapping it up with a meeting with possessed Karl Staki.
As you might think, it can be dangerous. Liars, peasants, even with the engine. Dropping bounce isn't easy and fatal. Mistake don't make Carl. This place too has destroyed. Then rent car. Professional.
Stucky's body vanished, leaving behind only a lifetime of nightmares to come, assuming I'd reach the lights at the gas station alive.
You're about to find the first TV at the gas station where we see Alan Wake raving like a lunatic. Cynthia Weaver actually talks about a similar thing later on in the game when she mentions that Thomas Zane has been talking to her from beyond and from television, and it's kind of a similar thing. Wake isn't aware of how it's happening, but that's what it is. We are...
reasserted itself. The garage was a mess. It looked like someone had trashed the place, or that there'd been some kind of fight.
Outside the store, there's only darkness. I can feel a presence in the dark. Just now.
Rainfall Sheriff Station.
Previously on Alan...
Honey, I'm home.
Back here, sweetie. How was it?
Worst weather I've ever seen.
We have 2 of these New York flashback scenes in the game, and actually we almost cut them out. And I'm very glad that we were able to keep them in because they are very important to the story that we're telling here. These are the days when the Wakes were actually happy. And we spent so much of the game in danger and in darkness, running around with guns blazing. And also, when we see Wake and Alice together, most of the time they're arguing or at least not being very happy. But these are the days when they were both very, very happy together, and these are the days they long for. In the second flashback sequence, towards the end of the game, you can see the cracks there. They aren't really doing very well anymore, but right now, this one it was good.
Oh, and speaking of Barry, he called. Alan! Alan, please check the fuse box.
I'm right here. I'm on it, honey. Honey, it's a power outage. I've got the flashlight.
Hi.
You okay?
I'm sorry. It just really spooked me.
Don't worry. We'll just break out the candles.
I know.
Well then, Mr. Wake, we're done here. If the pain gets any worse or you experience any other symptoms, you should come see me. I'll let you get on with it then. Sarah, Sheriff Breaker, is waiting for you. She's very good at her job. I'm sure she can locate your wife in no time.
Come in, Mr. Wake. Your phone's on the desk. The battery was dead. It's charged now.
Have you started looking for my wife yet?
My men are already on it. Now, can you tell me what happened?
I'm not sure. I can't remember. We were arguing. I walked out of the cabin.
The cabin on Cauldron Lake?
How did you end up at Stucky?
Who is this?
Go to the back lot. There's a hole in the fence on the left. Look inside the junker. I left a little something there to convince you we're all on the same page here. After you ditch the cops, you're gonna meet me in Elderwood National
Mr.
Park.
Wake, can I help you
There's a spot
with
called
anything?
Lover's Peak. Midnight. Don't do nothing stupid, pal. We're watching you.
I need to get some air. The sheriff said I could go out.
In many small towns, life is peaceful and not that much happens that really requires police intervention. Such is the case with Bright Falls also. And the sheriff station is really a friendly, almost cozy place. Indeed, the jail cells are more often used to sober people up than holding anyone for a longer period of time.
Where the hell have you been? I've been trying to reach you for a week, you and Alice. I've been worried sick. I flew out yesterday. I'm here in Bright Falls.
Barry, listen to me. I'm at the sheriff's station. Come and get me. I can't talk now.
Al, what the hell is going on?
I had to get the sheriff to let me go. I needed to get to Elderwood National Park to meet Alice's kidnappers.
A writer is a light that reveals the world of his story from darkness.
Marvelous, Sarah. I just wanted to settle all the damage the Anderson brothers might have inadvertently...
I had to talk to someone. I told Barry everything. He thought I was...
What an airhead.
The visitor center is the hub of Elderwood National Park area. It's a place where you can get information about the local wildlife, directions if you are going out hiking in the forest, or keys if you are renting one of the cabins in the area. It also has a nice cafeteria, which looks out into the forest. It's a bright and beautiful place to stop for a while and have a cup of coffee. But it's also filled with lots of stuffed animals and mammoth skeletons and so forth. So it's not really a place that you'd want to visit at nighttime, which is what you will be doing.
Are you high? Have you been drinking?
Wait here. I think this is the form you wanted.
And here are the keys. Okay, you're all set, Mr. Wake. Glad to have you staying here.
Thanks. Can you tell me how to get to Lover's Peak?
Do you understand what it sounds like when you say stuff like that? Don't get me wrong, it's a good story, could be a bestseller. But when you start confusing fiction... Just be careful with the names.
Barry is a very fun character to write, and frankly, a big part of that is Fred Berman, who does Barry's voice. And he's a cool guy because it doesn't matter how stupid the thing I write is, he actually always makes it sound good. He would just always find the right tone for Barry and sort of make him human even though he's saying something completely idiotic. Barry's a clown, of course, and you know, you could call him a greedy little weasel and you wouldn't be far off from the truth. But at the same time, he's a loyal friend and he's smarter than he lets on. And, you know, he's got the flaming eye of Mordor, so, you know, that goes a long way.
Right in the sheriff's station. The cops wouldn't scare them. And they had Alice. Vision left me weak. This was no head injury.
Rusty, hang on! I'm coming! Please, help me! Help me! Can you hear me? Anyone? Please, help! Hello? Back here. I'm back here.
Whatever did this couldn't be far. Rusty had found a page from the manuscript. It would help me understand what had happened. The only way to make sure that Rusty was safe.
Right now Rusty's still alive, but you know that's not gonna last for long. He's a couple of minutes away from being turned into one of the Taken.
You know, and we worked on Taken for a long while, and when we initially started to build the concept, the basis was on serial killers from comics and movies.
Right.
We wanted to almost seem like immortal enemies, and they always turn up where you least expect them.
Yeah, and they seem kind of mindless. Well, that's because the Dark Presence just sort of strips everything away from them. It just leaves this empty shell and fills in the darkness and sort of throws them at you. They're really about aggression and they don't really do subtle.
And that's exactly why we love the melee weapons, right? And we actually considered giving them firearms at one point. But when we tried that, I think it took away something from the unique feel of combat.
Yeah, because we kind of want them to come at you.
Yeah, they need to be aggressive, right? And I think the melee weapons also represent something old and mythical, what the Dark Presence is, unlike the light, which is modern and technical.
Yeah, and of course you probably noticed that they keep on babbling all the time. Well, you have, but you know, I'm talking to a player here. That was actually kind of an experiment because we just wrote some of that stuff on a whim for Stucky in the beginning, and when we got the lines back from the actor, it was creepy as hell. So we, of course, decided that we're gonna have more of this stuff, and we just wrote more of it in.
Yeah, exactly. It's just excellent.
Do bears and wolves never approach any other world a little closer than... That's unfeeling. Never leave your pet unattended.
The Elderwood National Park sits in the middle of the dark and majestic Elderwood Forest. It's a place that features bare sun-bathed mountainsides and tall redwood forests and temperate rainforests and marshlands. Despite some hiking trails and friendly signs, it's nevertheless a wild place like nature is, and you shouldn't venture out too far into it after dusk. This place is inspired by the many beautiful nature preservation parks that are a staple of Pacific Northwest. And as we do like to throw the player out into the forest a lot at nighttime, this location really is in the essence of our gameplay.
Lover's Peak was at the far end of the nature trail. Shit. You can see them too?
Hell, of course I see him. Come on, we gotta move.
Why?
Because that's the way the story goes.
Yeah, but...
Let's move!
I lost my gun back there.
Oh, I've got it. Just keep that light
I love
steady.
this scene. This is where we show the handheld flare for the first time. It's a really effective defensive weapon. It pushes the closest enemies away, drains their shields, and actually makes them retreat. It's really useful when many enemies are attacking you at the same time and you're really in trouble. We also have a twist in the gameplay here. We actually take away your gun, and you need to rely on a mod to be able to survive. You need to use the flashlight to keep the enemies away and stay close to mod.
Peak. Right up these stairs, Wake. Use the flares from the emergency box to hold them off while I get these boards off.
Give me the gun.
Yeah, no can do, Wake.
Are you kidding? Give me the gun!
No time for back talk. Hold them off, damn it. A little longer. Scare them off. Get some light on those bastards. That'll keep them off us. Just a little longer. I almost got it. Okay, it's open. Move it or lose it. Better get ready. They'll be on us soon. This is it, Wake. The last stand. There's more flares here. Get ready. We fight them as long as they keep coming.
Give me the goddamn gun! They're coming!
That's not how this goes. Get with the program, Wake. Yeah! That's right!
No! Come back here! I swear I'll kill you if you hurt Alice! Do you hear me? Come back here!
Shaping this area of dark foggy forest into a playable area has been challenging. We wanted to give the player the impression of being lost without making the navigation ever annoying. Also, we noticed that the journey has been quite long through the national park, and many players wanted to pick up the pace this far. This basically meant that we did have to close off some of the branches.
Splinter.
Il y a tellement de bruit, mon vieux, man!
Gang shit.
On fait la 117!
Quoi?
Là, ça va geler les poubelles. Ben ouais, mon char est là. Je suis parti, ma blonde a mis partir le char.
Rusty had warned me about these traps. It hurt like hell. I was stuck.
On va porter ça. Just, ça va vider son sac à poubelle sur le char. Le recyclage, c'est pas plus qu'au Canada, on ne recycle pas. 13% de nos déchets sont Et mon but, j'entends que dalle.
Hey Splinter!
Moi, ça t'entend rien.
Tu work chez Bob?
Ben
Tu work
oui.
chez Bob?
Ah ouais!
Nice!
Vous m'entendez pas, quoi? Mais je suis là! Bon char. Ah, je vous rappelle, j'entends rien de
Ok. Beau char.
Ouais.
Moi, je vous regarde. Allô? Là, je faisais fuck all, man. Je chantais avec du monde dans un autre système. Toi? Ok.
Facile? Je te vois pas. Allô? Ça, je veux dire, j'en parlais parler. C'est la route, Nous arrivons aussi à Brossard. 4 sorties à Brossard. Mon gars, c'est pas con? Ah oui, je suis à ma job. Ah, c'est moi qui ai ouvert? Ah, ben, ouais. 3 heures. 3 heures, là. Après ça, tu vas faire une bière. 5 heures. Ah non, 5 heures. Non, tu finis à 7 heures. Non. 6 heures. Non, on finit à 5 heures. 5 heures.
Beware of Widowmakers.
Qu'est-ce que vous faites, vous autres? Oh!
On risque rien à Adieu. T'es content, Joël? Ah, ouais,
Is a hazardous occupation.
Merci tout le monde. Merci, Spectre.
Barry?
Merci.
Stay out of sight. I'm on my way. Don't open the door.
Libérez-vous du Québec.
Stay hidden. I'll be there soon. Just make sure you keep the lights on. I still had to reach Barry at the cabin, but at least I was out of the woods.
Hein? La cantine. Ouais. Mais c'est pas une grosse tête, man. C'est ça que je vais faire? C'est pas une grosse tête.
I'd have to get the car from the locked garage. It would get me back to Barry faster, and the headlights were a welcome bonus.
Moi, je m'en vais vendredi. Ciao. Je m'en encore, j'ai vu de la cantine. Je vais monter une tête de 50$. Je m'en encore. Right, okay.
Here we have the first driving scene. The vehicles were originally designed to be used as weapons against the dark forces. The headlights are used to burn the darkness away, and you finish them off by driving over them. Along the way, vehicles became a more important part of level design, and scenes which use vehicles are clearly differentiated from basic foot combat sections.
J'amène la cantine. De la cantine. Mais ça. Joe il est parti là, est-ce qu'il est fait une tête avec? Moi, c'est là, ouais. Yo, t'as pas ça dans mon lopier, là? C'est ce petit bâtiment qu'on a. Le casino de Montréal. Non. Sur Montréal. T'as un casino de Mont-Tremblant? Ouais, y'en a un à Tremblant. C'est à genre 1h30 de chez nous. Il y a des milliards en infrastructure. Je sais pas s'il est hot le casino de Tremblant, mais tu sais, c'est un casino. Je sais pas s'il est hot. Ben, c'est sûr que oui, là.
It was the kidnapper.
Ben, tu sais, gambler de la vraie argent, je sais pas pour vrai, là. Faudrait que je sois sûr de ma shot.
I don't... Listen. I'm gonna need time to finish it. I still need to write the ending. I need...
Ouais, ben, tu sais, mettons que je gâche pas 25 000 comme à GTA, là. Ce serait plus des 500. déjà venu ça arrive.
J'ai peut-être déjà passé par là, mais...
À Montréal?
Ouais, j'ai été à Montréal.
Promener à Montréal?
Ouais.
Yes, I get you.
Ici, c'est Longueuil, mon ami. Ah! La crème,
Barry had
il y a
talked about birds over
Saint-Jérôme,
the phone.
il y a Trois-Rivières, puis il y a Longueuil, là, et Sherbrooke aussi, peut-être. Saint-Jean. Là, il vit des crackheads.
Ah, moi, je suis plus un gars de bois, man.
J'étais un gars de bois. Hey, gars! Tu vis en pleine forêt, là?
Ouais, tu veux-tu voir chez nous?
Ouais, man, ah ouais, là-dessus, envoie.
J'envoie ça dans 4.0.
4.0.
Ah. Ça dure 4 minutes.
4.0. 4.0. Source d'alimentation. Mode d'envoi.
Une version.
Une version. Carrément. Ah, une version.
Hein?
C'est un peu... Ah. C'est craquette, mon ami,
Je regarde.
C'est pas trop. Il y a des murs qui cachent ça. On peut? Ici, là, il y a l'air, j'ai dit que tu vas réparer mon téléphone. C'est à droite. J'ai rentré mon scooter là, il y avait bien beau, je rentrais là pour mon stand. Pour après ça, là.
I'm
Tout
sorry
allait mal,
for
dans
thinking
ce
you were
scooter.
having a psychotic episode, man.
Fuck off, rentrer un
I sent Barry to the town previously on Alan Wake. Alice has... How the hell...
Help you folks? Name's Randolph. I'm the manager.
The trailer park where Rose lives is a cozy place that recently had a bit of a shock when a sailing boat picked up by a tornado crashed in the middle of two trailers. This is a location that for a long time looked like it was not going to make it in the final game, but I'm glad it did, because I think it's one of those places that helps define the character and style of the game in a visual way. When we went out photo shooting along the Pacific Northwest area, we came across many trailer parks, and we have plenty of material for them. So I think that really shows in the authenticity of this location.
I'm the God-fearing type myself. I don't hold with that sort.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, there was an island there owned by a guy called Thomas Zane. Now, some of the articles I found about him make him out to be a famous writer, but I ran a bunch of searches, couldn't find a single thing he wrote. Zane was heavily into diving, so much so that the place came to be called Diver's Isle. But the volcano under the lake erupted in 1970, and Zane went down with the
Oh, hey, ça. Moi, je vois du gens, là. Je vois des gens. Je vois des gens qui se tiennent pas en équilibre, là, sur le bord des poteaux, là.
Barbara Jagger drowned in Cauldron Lake just a week earlier. They were lovers.
Non, mais ici, tu sais, ils ont démoli ça, là, c'était eux.
Scratch in hand. Comes for you in
Ouais,
the
ça,
dark.
c'est le Pécoin Sainte-Hélène, Sainte-Foy.
Anyway, Al,
J'ai déjà vendu la fausse morphine à un monsieur qui habitait là-bas.
Welcome to... Oh dear. Mr. Wake.
Shit.
I'm so
Oh
glad
non,
you're
le gars,
here.
il a dit...
Rose, you have my manuscript?
Oh. Oh, yes. Yes. Please, come in.
I felt nauseous, hungover. Only
C'est
anger
comme
kept
pas
me
laid,
going.
mais on voit
Rose
que
took
c'est
a day
vieux.
for me. I had less than 12 hours left to meet the kidnapper. All I could do was work something out once I got
The Dark Presence is the main adversary in our game.
Ben, c'est parce que ça ressemble à des villages
I
chez
wouldn't
nous,
necessarily
là.
call it evil,
Dans mon
but
coin.
it is completely alien to our world, and that may pretty much be the same thing. We don't really want to explain the Dark Presence in too much detail. We kind of want it to remain a mystery, but let me say this much. It's definitely not human. It doesn't think the way we do. A good example of this would be when Wake actually escaped.
I hated to leave Barry behind, but there was no way I'd miss my appointment with the kidnapper.
Mr. Wake, come on! Make it easier!
Vidéo, internet, ça.
Les gens qui font du jogging. Ils sont bien sur le crack.
Ils courent après sa drogue.
Ouais.
Putain, j'avais pas dû faire ça.
Okay, men, keep your eyes peeled. He's gonna try to make it through here alone.
Oh, damn.
Cette affaire-là, le bébé qui est au noir, c'est un peu ça fait mieux que depuis ça a rien. J'aimerais rien. Il y a plein de bons c'est ça qui sont venus mon endroit. Ça, c'est une espèce de place pour que je fasse sans amis. Du quartier, ils sont pas contents parce que c'est ça. C'est construit.
Oh, alors je vais
Là, mais toi, vous autres, vous habitez à Longueuil?
Là, à la prairie.
La prairie, c'est loin de Longueuil.
C'est genre, il y a ça a été écœurant, man.
C'est grand à Chris, l'île de Montréal.
On peut l'attendre.
Ah, je pensais que c'était un accident que je voyais.
Ah ouais?
Ouais.
Une mauvaise nouvelle.
Quoi?
C'est pour ça que j'essaie.
This horror was everywhere I went, circling me. The cops didn't stand a chance. They were after a writer, not a monster. I imagined that the broadcast tower in the distance was part of the local radio station. Maine seemed like a decent guy. Perhaps he could give me directions to the coal mine. Unnatural shadows clung to the gate. The darkness that was after me was trying to stop me. I wouldn't get through without a light. There was no power to the searchlight.
Ouais, pour vrai, là, je l'ai fait réparer en plus, là. T'appelles ça, là?
Ah, shit.
L'affaire en dessous, fait tourner les roues.
Les lignes de roue?
Non, l'affaire en dessous. Les affaires qui tiennent les roues.
Les kits,
Le link kit.
puis la rue.
Non,
Non, ça,
juste
c'est
fait
moi.
changer le link kit.
Ça, c'est moi.
Ouais, juste le link kit, ça m'a juste coûté quelque chose de bien. J'ai fait le changement de en même temps.
Sinon, le moteur complètement vite. Hey, bro.
It took me a moment to recognize.
Here we see one of the most useful tools that the gameplay designers have. We call it beds, for bringing enemies to the scene. It started off as a simple spawning system, but as time went on, it evolved into something bigger. It actually now incorporates build-up as well. You hear the whispers and sounds that the darkness creates, and, well, the darkness itself actually appearing in the forest. It hides the enemies when they actually get close to you. On top of that, we have a reveal system, which shows the first enemy attacking you, but we do it only once per combat. After that, you're on your own.
Oh, ouais. Il m'a jamais transmis ce genre de truc. Il répare mon sort. Ça fait mal. Ben oui. C'est un jeu.
Sérieux, genre pour le... Que je tombe à aller là-bas, ça
Là, les bacs, dans l'onglet. Ah oui, c'est elle. Là. Yeah. Puis mon bro, t'as battu ton score. En plein de l'eau.
Il y a une couple de personnes.
Est-ce que tu es content? C'est quand même pas de ça. Ouais. Ça, c'est pas c'est comme
I hope Maine could.
We don't see a lot of Pat Maine in the game, but actually he has a considerable presence. One of the problems with Alan Wake was that we really wanted to maintain that small town atmosphere, but that's very hard to do when, you don't actually spend a lot of time in the small town itself. A familiar and dependable radio will solve that problem. Also, I think RJ Allison, who plays Pat Maine, did a wonderful job. He really nails the character, and it's so great to be alone in the dark and then hear that warm and dependable voice.
Well, thank you very much for that compassionate viewpoint, Lorna. Oh, here's a little surprise. The famous writer Alan Wake just walked in. Folks, I'm going to see if I can talk him into an interview.
Hey, Lane.
Come on in, Mr. Wake. Oh, I'm so glad you could find...
I'll get you yet, even if it kills me, you hear?
Here we have another really well set up journey. The train depot and the bridge in the distance well visible from early on. As an interesting side note, this whole area was originally just a minor branch, not even a branch. Alan Wake just basically had to get a car from the forest and continue towards the mining museum. With months of iteration and looking at the possibilities given by the environment, we found out that this area could have lots of poltergeist events, could have hidden routes and so forth. The bridge and the train depot all appearing far later in their development.
Alex, il y en a un ben
There was no sensible reason for the power company work lights to be here. It was almost as if they'd been left for someone like me to use.
Non, tu dis quoi?
Hello?
The most stubborn man I've ever met.
Alice? Alice?
Alan. I'm so afraid. Keeps me in the dark. Please help me. I look at you, Alan, and it's not you. Something else. Looking out from behind your eyes.
Alice, I'm here.
I'm so alone here. It's all gonna go to hell. You need to be careful. Cooperate.
The connection had been terrible, but that wasn't the only thing that hadn't been right with the call. She sounded wrong somehow, but she had called me. I could see a railway bridge up ahead.
Everybody knows the movie Poltergeist, but I wouldn't say that it was the origin for this idea. This game is about possession. It's about the dark presence taking over everything in the world. It started off with humans, and, well, in the design, the inanimate objects were the next logical step. One of the hardest things to do was to convey intent. The objects don't have any body language, unlike the Taken. How we ended up with the current feature was that the lead writer actually encountered a problematic
Called me. I could see a railway bridge up ahead, and a warehouse of some sort on the opposite shore.
Everybody knows the movie Poltergeist, but I wouldn't say that it was the origin for this idea. This game is about possession. It's about the dark presence taking over everything in the world. It started off with humans, and, well, in the design, the inanimate objects were the next logical step. One of the hardest things to do was to convey intent. The objects don't have any body language, unlike the Taken. How we ended up with the current feature was that the lead writer actually encountered a problematic physical object. It flickered around the terrain erratically, and you really couldn't tell what is going to happen next. And that ended up being a real feature. And here you can see the result.
As a teenager, just starting to get interested in writing, Stephen King had been a source of inspiration to me. I thought about all the inanimate objects that had come to life in his books. No one is safe in a good horror story, certainly not the protagonist. That's what makes them fun. This was anything but. The darkness could possess anything, and it was getting closer.
The dog possession can take over almost anything. That includes machinery like vehicles. In the next scene you will see the bulldozer attacking you, and it might be familiar to you from demos that have been shown in different shows before. I would like to say that plenty of thought and research went into this, but the fact is that it was basically just a lucky test when you pulled around with the AI physics. And here you can see the results.
Today, I would meet the kidnapper, and he would give me Alice. He wouldn't give many other
This daytime driving sequence is great to have in the final game, especially considering that it was the source of debate earlier on. It's fairly hard to actually see this kind of sequences, are they actually working or not, before we have the final environment, the mood, the sounds and so forth. Of course now, it is great to have in the final game. It provides a very nice change of pace in the middle of episode 3, and it provides great showcase for our technology, our views, and also it's great to see the environment that you usually see in the night, covered in shadows and in fog, in its full glory.
The feel of history and roots is somehow very present in the whole Pacific Northwest area. It's one of those things that lends the unique feel to this region. This was once a very inaccessible and thus isolated region, but in the turn of the 19th and 20th century, as railroads started getting built, it was suddenly connected to the rest of the country. This greatly benefited industries like mining, for example, because now ore could easily be transported across vast distances. Towards
Wake!
Where the hell are you?
Change of plans. You know where Mirror Peak is? It's a big mountain north of where you are. You follow the path from the mine, you can't miss it. There's a lookout point there. I'll be waiting.
I'm through being jerked around by
You
you.
want to see your wife alive? Because if you do, you better watch what you say to me. Do we understand each other?
I want to talk to Alice.
Yeah, and I want the manuscript. Don't keep me waiting, Wake.
Hello? Hello! Ah! I'm gonna kill him!
I had to get to Mirror Peak. It was close. Maybe closer than ever before.
Okay, now this whole kidnapping thing is a red herring, of course. It's just an attempt to manipulate Wake and to get him to deliver the manuscript. The so-called kidnapper, Maud, well, he doesn't have Alice. He doesn't know where Alice is, and neither does Dr. Hartman, the guy who's hired Maud. But they do know that Wake will do anything to get Alice back, so you know, they use her. They're nice people like that. The problem is that Wake doesn't have the manuscript at all. He doesn't know where it is. He has a couple of pages, but of course that's not enough. So they're lying to Wake about having Alice, and Wake is lying to them about having the manuscript, and nobody has much of it. It doesn't end very well for Mott, you know, who is going to get his in a couple of minutes, or no, a little longer. And Dr. Hartman doesn't have such a great day either. You know, what can I say? Karma Savage.
The hillside ahead was to go through the building. I had to find a way to avoid electrocution. There was no way the flashbang grenades were Standard Power Company equipment.
Our technology enables us to have a set of ready-made landscape types that tile seamlessly with each other and can be used to quickly lay out large sections of terrain, instantly creating realistic landscapes. These biotypes, as we call them, contain lots of different information about the resulting shape of the terrain. Things like what the ground is comprised of, is it mud, rocks, or grass, and what grows on it, different kind of foliage and trees, and also its bumpiness. So we don't manually build every square meter of forest that there is in the game, but instead focus our efforts on creating these biotypes so realistic that they can be used to cover a patch of terrain of almost any size and still look realistic. We then cover the terrain with patches of different biotypes that go together very well before finally going over the area with a precision polish.
The dark presence was moving ahead of me in the same direction I was going. A cold feeling settled itself in the pit of my stomach. Was it going for Alice?
The graveyard shift may cause cancer.
The place was dead, a ghost town. Had been for decades, maybe a century. Outside of riding is a struggle. I feel ill. I managed to make my way downstairs. There's a shoebox filled with books and papers by Thomas Zane. It's very hard to focus. The kidnapper had sent me a text. The message was full of spelling errors and insults. It was telling me to hurry up,
We chose birds as our only animal enemy type. The main reason being that the birds actually bring something new to the table, an extra dimension. We try to think through the whole package of the player experience. The player needs to look down for bear traps, look ahead for taken, and look up for the birds.
The guys who did this mine puzzle, Antti and Tiago, did a really amazing job here. This is again one of the cases where we started with a very low-key design requirement, just something to occupy the player for a moment. But with iteration, looking at what works, what not, we actually got this amazing sequence which does what it's supposed to do. It looks complex, it looks imposing, but it's very intuitive to play, and I hope you actually enjoy going through it.
In a similar vein to how we handle the different types of terrain with biotypes, we have a preset system for weather styles as well. The game engine lets us control numerous parameters, things like cloudiness, wind, rain, and also lighting parameters, things like color, intensity and blooming, to create truly stunning weather effects. Using this technology, we have created a palette of ready-made weathers that can be called upon at any time, so really it is weather on demand at the push of a button. Each level has its own or sometimes menu and so their own mood.
I could see Cauldron Lake. I thought I could make out the spot where the island and the cabin had been. There was a light near it. It had to be a boat. I was close now. I had to get there fast. I dreaded what I would find.
Wait! That you? Wait! Hey, I'm here! I'm coming! No! Get away! Sorry. Please, leave! The boss didn't know who he was messing with. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know. We don't have his wife. We don't know where she is. She's probably drowned. We just said we had her to make him play ball.
Previously on... I felt groggy. Whatever Hartman had pumped in me was making me numb.
As far as the bad guys go, Dr. Hartman isn't the main villain here, but he's probably a little more interesting than the Dark Presence. He's a very smart guy, and he knows a lot about the Dark Presence and Cauldron Lake in general. He kind of presents himself as a pop psychologist to the stars, but that's kind of a ruse. He just wants creative people in so he can exploit them. With Wake, of course, he resorted to a little more drastic measures. You know, he pretended to have kidnapped his wife, fished him out of a lake, you know, tried to convince him that he was schizophrenic, and it doesn't end very well for him, but, you know, it's a valiant effort anyway. We have a lot of backstory for this guy, and I'd love to do a little bit more with him in the future, but, you know, of course, we don't exactly leave him feeling very well at the end of this one.
Big of you.
Now, why don't you come with me? We'll reacquaint you with my clinic and go over everything you might have forgotten. Little walk and some fresh air? Yes, it will do you good. This corridor is for patients. Most of them aren't here right now. Jack took them out for a fishing trip, except for the ones who are particularly vulnerable, of course. I encourage creativity as a part of the recovery process here at Cauldron Lake Lodge. I specialize in treating artists.
I bet you do.
Splendid, Alan. I honestly believe we can get this thing under control if we work together. This way, Alan. Now, Now, Alan, from past experience with you, I know I need to get right into the heart of the matter as quickly as I can after an episode. So I'm just going to say this. Alice is dead.
No.
You're in a very vulnerable state until you understand and accept this. Alice drowned, and you couldn't face that. You're suffering from hallucinations, paranoid delusions, unusual thinking, an obsession about light and darkness, a feeling that everything revolves around you, your thoughts and dreams. Your mind has constructed an elaborate fantasy scenario in which your writings are affecting reality. She has been kidnapped and supernatural forces of darkness are trying to stop you. We go this way, Alan.
Cauldron Lake Lodge is the residence and place of practice for Dr. Emil Hartman, who uses it as a sort of a nursing home and also a place of inspiration for artists he treats there. Built in the turn of the century, it is an imposing building, hewn from large timber and heavy stone, with a steep shingle roof to weather off even the heaviest of snowfalls. The starting idea for this location was the real-world hotel of Timberline Lodge that they used in the movie Shining, but following the Story-wise, the most important location in the game, Cauldron Lake, is inspired by the real-world location of Crater Lake in Oregon. It's a vast lake formed from a volcano thousands of years ago in a massive eruption. It's truly a breathtaking place that anyone interested in such things should definitely visit. In the game, the location, this Cauldron Lake, has actually had two notable eruptions. One that originally formed the lake, and then another which took down a small island in it, along with its cabin and even a person, a diver called Thomas Zane. The place is said to hold an ancient power, and it's not without reason, as you will find out playing the game.
Now there was nothing but waves.
It seems there's a storm coming. Funny, I don't recall there being a mention of that in the weather forecast. Well, no matter. This way. Follow me. Alan, what I'm telling you is good news. Right now we're in control. Every time you have a relapse, it gets more and more difficult to resurface from the dark depths of your imagination. Not surprising, considering your profession. Imagination is what you work with. After all your nightmares, this should come as an immense relief to you. If it doesn't, why is that? Because I'm lying? Or because you don't want to admit that you're not well? It's very natural for you to think of me as your enemy. It's part of the illness.
I let him talk. Hartman obviously loved his own voice. His words echoed madly inside my head. I dug my nails into the palms of my hands to stay focused.
You need to work with me. Once you accept that, we can begin the journey towards your recovery. Come along. Let's go inside. Now here's the entrance to the office wing. That's for staff only.
Scary bad. Yeah, bad. Scary, scary, scary.
Emerson.
I'm a real bad dream, mister. You should be afraid of me. Don't want to run into me in the night, that's for sure.
Please, Emerson. Mr. Wake is confused enough as it is.
Yeah, you'd like me to go away so you won't be scared. But you can't just decide what kind of dream you have or when you have it.
Emerson.
Okay. Sorry. Boo.
That's Emerson. We're actually making some progress with him, I'm happy to say. He works on video
Elbow
games.
strike. Ooh,
It's
yeah.
trash, of course, but it does involve
Get him
some
to the head.
small creative effort, which makes him receptive to my therapeutic methods.
No kidding.
Come, Alan, this way. Now, you might have noticed the typewriter in your room. You've been writing as a part of the therapy. As soon as you feel up to it, you should continue.
My rheumatism's killing me. There's a storm coming. Oh, what a storm.
I hope it wipes this place off the face of the earth.
And these two are the Anderson brothers, Odin and Thor. They had how should I put this? A heavy metal band in the 70s and 80s called Old Gods of Asgard. They even adopted new first names to complete the image of Viking gods. After the band broke up, they lived on a farm nearby. They are, well, in advanced stages of dementia. They're well cared for, TLC and all that. There's nothing more that can be done. I'm afraid that the rock and roll lifestyle has left its mark.
Oh, that won't.
My head was clearing up, or according to Hartman, I was sinking back into the fantasy. I was convinced he was lying to me about everything.
He's not overreacting.
Crazy or not, the Andersons made more sense.
I may need a hand here later on, Bird. The storm's bound to make you-know-who jumpy. You know how they go.
I didn't know what the chaos was all about, but it could be my only chance of getting out of here.
Where the hell did he get a damn hammer?
I don't know.
Here's a friendly poke from Mjolnir, witch.
Sinclair looked bad.
Afraid of
That
the
wasn't a
crazy
love tap.
brothers,
The
are
crazy
ya?
old fart
Not
hit her
so
hard.
weak now,
If she was one of
are
Hartman's
we?
goons, she had it coming. I could get the key to the
Well,
office
things are
from Sinclair.
unraveling fast,
I
aren't
had
they?
to get to Hartman's office. He had taken all my manuscript pages. That's where he'd be keeping them.
Destiny. It's my storm. I'm taking it. Come on, face the music, Birch. It's time to pay the piper. We're out of back door.
Arthur, do you hear me? I'm gonna do your crazy quack ass to shreds! Seriously!
Barry?
Ow! About time!
Barry, man, am I glad to see you. We need...
The Haunted House sequence went through a lot of iterations during development. We had as extreme routes as Alan Wake, actually going behind and below the lodge on the mountain cliffs and fighting against possessed patients. Eventually it was great that we focused on the poltergeist events because it allowed us to create a nice chain of smaller, light-based puzzles, and it also wrapped up really nicely with the big poltergeist fight in the main yard.
I needed light to get the possessed bookshelves out of my way.
As the dark presence attacks the lodge, we are seeing an escalation in its power and aggressiveness. Maybe even some frustration. It's now been chasing you for quite a while and with little success. And now that you are on its home court, so to speak, it's literally throwing stuff at you left and right. It's a good thing that the lodge is built to handle heavy storms, or otherwise it might come crashing down on you with all the furniture that's flying around. This scene is kind of like an action puzzle where you have to react to fast-changing conditions and find your way out of the building before it's too late. Fans of Max Payne 1 might have a fleeting sense of familiarity here.
But the gate's locked. You're gonna have to go through the hedge maze over there.
Barry, I don't have a light.
Take this, Al. Oh God! Look at the
Originally, the hedge maze actually was a circular shape. It looked great from the aerial shots, and everything was pretty good as long as you actually didn't go in there. But playing a maze with all the corridors in various curves just didn't really work, and we then went with this more traditional setup. Originally, the hedge maze actually was a circular shape. It looked great from the aerial shots, and everything was pretty good as long as you actually didn't go in there. But playing a maze with all the corridors in various curves just didn't really work, and we then went with this more traditional setup.
Turn it off. We don't want any fighting. It makes me sad. You get 2 pills in the morning, and then you'll be nice and calm.
Let's get out of here. Can you open this gate?
Maybe.
Barry.
Well, I slammed it shut when the nasty showed up, and the key fits kind of loose in the lock, so, Barry! I'll find it! Don't worry about it!
Hurry up, Barry! Barry.
I'm on it! I'm on it!
I had lost my gun in the crash. Barry was nowhere to be seen.
Barry! Barry!
Oh, man, you're okay! Jesus, good to hear your voice!
Here we have, once again, a twist to the gameplay. We actually take away the light, the main tool of the player. The point of this scene is to demonstrate how utterly helpless Wake is without his light against the forces of darkness. There really isn't any other option here but to run or die.
It's like a sheer wall! Ah! Al! There's something moving down here!
Barry, it's a taken! Use a flare, Barry!
Yeah!
Barry, are you alright?
This area is the Anderson farm. In the game we have these two goofy guys called the Anderson brothers. They used to live here, but with time they have gone a bit funny in the head, and now they spend most of their time at Hartman's clinic, although they do wander off all the time.
Yeah, they were in a band called the Old Gods of Asgard, and they actually pretended to be Nordic gods. And that whole rock and roll lifestyle thing was just a little bit too much for them. And it probably didn't help that they actually made their moonshine with water from Corner Lake. These guys are nuts.
Yeah, but this is a really cool location. It used to be an ordinary farm, but as these guys led their rock and roll lifestyle, they made it into their own image, and they built this stage in the middle of the cornfield and even decorated the farmhouse with Viking imagery. They had some serious parties here. This whole Viking thing was like a lifestyle for them, and in the end they started to believe in their own characters. Unfortunately, it went a bit too far, and they woke up the Dark Presence with their music.
Yeah, this all took place not long after Zane had managed to put the Dark Prince down in the first place, and the Dark Prince really messed with their heads. That's another reason why they're so crazy. And eventually they managed to put it back down, but unfortunately they didn't really do a very good job of it. And I guess that's good, because if they had, then we wouldn't be having a story here at all.
That's true. These guys really aren't that good with details. They sort of let the Dark Presence hanging in limbo, kind of like waiting for somebody to come along and put it back into business.
Cue Alan Wake.
Oh yeah.
I could sense the movement.
And here the player gets the light back to basics. A good boost, as you know, blinds the enemies and slows them down, and that's the only way to survive through this situation. You still need a weapon to be able to defeat them, so the only option is to continue running.
A car was driving away from the farm, headed in the same general direction as I was. For all I knew, it was Barry, caught in the consequences of leaping before looking. The car was heading for the cabin up ahead. It wasn't far. If it was Barry, I would see the damage soon.
I'm trying to deliver each page to the right time and place. I'm trying to show you how the story goes.
I had seen glimpses of the light before. I had seen it in my dream. It was a strange spaceman or a diver in a bulky suit. He was the one who'd been placing the pages on my path. Someone had left a gun behind. Now I had a fighting chance of reaching the farm.
The journey from the crashed car, the second one we have in the game, up to this hunting cabin has been fun to develop. It was really cool to see different things, try different things that work out with Wake being very vulnerable. Originally, we tried giving Wake just less ammunition, less batteries. Then we took the revolver away for quite a long time. And in this final version, you actually start the whole journey.
I've run through every possible course in my head. If I continue like the Dark Presence wants me to, the story I'm writing won't save Alice. It's a horror story. The farm was still a good distance away. I'd need a car to get there fast. If Barry wasn't up here, he was probably in trouble.
The farmlands area has been one of the most liked areas during early gameplay testing. I think the big element to this is that we have very many different gameplay types during this journey. We just had a very tightly planned, very tightly designed survival journey up to this hunting cabin, and then again now we give the player a car, we give a direction, and we give the player the chance to actually dictate his own pace for a while.
I'd known the brothers used to be some kind of rock stars, but it hadn't really sunk in until I saw the stage.
I'm so glad you decided to go it alone, Mr. Bronson.
Shut up and shoot! Ow! We have to fight them all! I can set off more of the fireworks from here! Hey, Al! Did you notice there's all this ammo and stuff around? This place is stopped! Come on! I'll try to get the stage lights on! Please, please, please! That was awesome!
Bright Falls, rock and roll capital of America.
Children of the Elder God, what a great song to kick ass to. I think the whole stage fight sequence is going to be one of the most memorable moments for a lot of people, simply because it's just such a ridiculous action-packed sequence. The music is actually by the band Poets of the Fall, who have a long history of collaboration with Remedy. We kind of wanted this to sound like 70s heavy rock, and I think they did a fantastic job of that, and from what I hear, they had a good time doing that too. They also did the other song that you hear a little bit later at the farmhouse, The Poet and the Muse, and that's of course a more of a ballad, but you know, still a very nice song. The lyrics of both songs are actually based on poems by our lead writer Sam Lake.
Hey, I think Alan Wake here has something to say. What's that, Al?
I'm Alan Wake. I'm always right about everything. And if I don't get my way, I'll sulk all day long. I'm always intense and...
Wow! You look at that thing, Al! They really went all out with this Viking crap, didn't they? Look at all this stuff. They must have done okay for themselves, so how come I never heard of these guys before?
And this from the guy who learned about Ozzy Osbourne through reality TV?
The Viking boat looked imposing, almost like a battering ram. Imposing, almost like a battering ram.
Those geezers had quite a production going on. Ooh, you know what, Al? If we make it through this alive, I'm gonna... Reality show going, release a new single. Be careful, Al!
As you regular listeners know, I tend to work through the night, but I'm not the only
Deputies Mulligan and Thornton are taking a couple of minutes off their busy schedule to join me here in the studio. Boys, how busy are you? Beer Fest is almost here, isn't it? I bet that keeps you busy.
I could see the building that had to be the Andersons' home on the other side of the field. It wasn't far. I wasn't worried about trusting the ramblings of two burned-out geriatric wrecks. They had the goods. Got to be kidding me.
Al? Is that you out there, buddy?
I had to find a key to get Barry out.
Yeah, it's me. Hang on. I'll try to find a key to get the door open.
Hey, what's the holdup? Come on, this place is all dusty. You know I got my allergies. Hey, let's go, man. I think we're gonna have to work together to open this gate, Al. Looks pretty heavy. Hey, I think that's the farm on the other side of the field. We're almost there. This farm is a crazy place for crazy people.
We should feel right at home then.
Come on, one more gate. Let's do this thing. The lights are out. I guess we better check the fuse box. You know, this place looks kind of lived in. I thought the Andersons were in the booby hatch.
Yeah, I don't think they keep too close an eye on them at the clinic. They seem to slip away a lot so they can get whipped.
Can you hear that, Al? Music?
Of course. We need to find where it's coming from. That's the message the Andersons talked about. That's the whole reason we're here.
Lady of the Light? Oh, that's gotta be what's-her-face, the crazy lamp lady from the town.
Cynthia Weaver.
Right. Must be.
From the story point of view, this is a tremendously important sequence in the game. This is kind of where we reveal everything that happened during that missing week, and it's a kind of a dream sequence or a time traveling trip. Something that's brought on by the Andersons' mystical moonshine. And it doesn't really matter whether Wake is actually literally there or if he's just observing things through some sort of a memory form or whatever. He's there and he's seeing what's happening. For us, this was a kind of a show don't tell kind of a thing, because we could have turned this into a very long cinematic, but we kind of wanted the player to be able to observe things.
I remembered being surprised to see the cabin dark. Alice would have never turned the lights off. I remembered thinking I caught a glimpse of her form underwater, sinking into the darkness. Diving after her was the last vague memory I had of that night. After that, the next thing I could remember was waking up behind the wheel of the crashed car and finding the first pages of the manuscript. Beyond this lost memory, there was nothing. I had to follow the footsteps of my past self to find out what had happened that night. I couldn't find her in all that blackness. I must have thought she drowned.
Alice,
Jagger had Alice, and
Alice!
so she had me.
Alice!
I'd been easy prey.
Look at the cabin. Is there someone in the window?
Alice?
Maybe she didn't drown after all. Maybe she's inside.
Alice!
Yes.
The dark presence had touched me. She had dug her nails into my brain and used me, made me her puppet.
She must be here somewhere. Maybe upstairs in the study.
Alice!
Yes, that's where she is. You can apologize.
Alice!
You laugh at the whole thing together and put it
Alice!
behind you. She's not here. You were foolish to think so. No, she's dead. She drowned.
No, no, no!
It's your fault your wife is dead. You are guilty. All she wanted was to help you right. You killed her.
Ah!
Oh, hush. There's still hope. Cauldron Lake is a special place. Here, you have the power to change things. She wanted you to write. I will tell you what to do. You can write her back. The story will come true, and all will be well again.
She had Alice, and the manuscript was the ransom for her. Previously on... All the manuscript pages were gone. The FBI agent had taken them.
I think my tongue just took a crap in my mouth. Ugh. Oh, wait, we're in jail now? Oh, Al. Al, this is not good.
That about sums it up.
Oh, I am never drinking again.
I need to talk to Weaver. She's the one in the song. The Lady of the Light.
What, the crazy lady? Ugh, whatever you say, Al, but we're stuck here. They're not
You haven't
gonna...
even interviewed Wake.
I had some reading to do first, Sheriff, and let me tell you, it was an interesting read. Well, I've got you now, Raymond Chandler. It's all here. All the evidence, including conspiracy to murder a federal agent. There's no way you're walking out of here. You hear me in there, Bret Easton Ellis? Huh?
Agent Nightingale, I want to talk to your superior.
Well, we all want things, Sheriff. I wanted my... Look, that's not possible right now.
Agent Nightingale, I insist. Oh my God!
Light. We need light. It's the only way to fight this thing.
In my office. I've got your things there. Follow me.
Oh man, we're sitting ducks with the legs out.
We like to keep things a little vague because once you start explaining things in great detail, you kind of lose a lot of the magic. That said, I think it's very clear to everybody by now that Bright Falls is a very weird place, and it's not just about Cauldron Lake and what dwells within. Sarah Breaker is the sheriff here, and given the nature of Bright Falls, she has a fairly difficult job. Once you're the sheriff here, you're not just writing parking tickets. You're actually responsible for the entire community, and that's why her view of this whole thing is a little different than Wake's, because you could say that Wake's goal is a little bit selfish because it's all about his wife and his marriage, and Sarah is a little bit more community-minded because she's really fighting to save Bright Falls from this threat.
Wheeler, I need you to stay here.
What? No!
We're going to fetch our ride, but I have friends who need to be warned about this, and I can't be in two places at once. I need your help.
Well, okay.
Here's a list of people and phone numbers. I need you to call them and tell them you have a message from me. Night Springs, okay? They'll know what to do.
Night Springs? Like the TV show? Gotcha. Oh, hey, that radio guy is on the list. Maine. Who's Frank Breaker? He related to you?
My dad.
Hey, Is this like a secret society?
Can you do this? You'll be safe here if the backup power's on. These guys need to be alerted, just in case we don't come back.
You'll come back for me though, right?
As soon as we get the chopper ready. Thanks, Wheeler. I owe you one. Okay, let's go, Wake. Through the back.
Hello, Mr. Breaker? This is Barry Wheeler. Yeah, I know it's late.
Oh, hell. Whatever took Nightingale must have broken the gate controls. We can't reach the gate's control box from here. We need to get to the other side over the rooftop.
I'll go. I'll open the gate for you once I'm across. You stay here in the light and cover me, Sheriff, okay?
The town of Bright Falls is a sleepy, idyllic small town, the type that's familiar from much of popular culture, where little happens and time almost seems to stand still. The heaviest influences for this location were the town of Snoqualmie, where they shot Twin Peaks, and also the town of Roslyn, the location for Northern Exposure. If you've seen these shows or visited similar locations, you might recognize the dreamlike, almost peaceful ambience that they often seem to have. It's as if time is reluctant to move on, sort of clinging back to the glory days when the town was born, where industries like mining and logging were booming. It is genuine Americana, and I think we have captured it quite well.
Never this weird, though. You need to bypass the control box.
That's smart.
Good job, Wake. Okay, stick close. Our first stop is the town hall. The keys to the chopper are there.
Bright Falls was a very, very challenging location to really develop, to get all the paths and all the branches of the journey to feel natural. The town was designed and built quite a bit earlier than we actually settled upon the final storyline twists and the specifics what actually happened there. This meant we had a lot of problem solving to do when we actually got to decide where Alan Wake and Sarah go to. For example, this branch, this harborside building that you're now just been going past, was something we incorporated very late in the process when we noticed that having the whole harbor street available for combat just didn't work that well as we expected for combat, pacing and technology.
Over here! There's Lake!
Well?
I have a key. Watch my back, Wake.
It's an ambush.
Let's go, Wake. Okay, someone's messed with the fuse box here, but you should be able to jury-rig it while I find the keys.
I already got electrocuted once today. How about I look for the keys and you get burned for a change?
The message was from Barry. He was getting worried at the station. He wanted us to hurry.
Hey, Sheriff, I got the keys.
The storefront's blocked. Come on, Wake, let's go around. We can meet him in the back. We can make it through the bookstore. Dealers should be waiting for us in the backyard.
Keep the hell down or I'll call the sheriff.
Oh, hi, Doc. I've got it. Don't worry about it.
Sarah, about time somebody showed up. All the shooting in the air is idiotic. One of these days they'll kill somebody. And over Deerfest.
No! Go back to bed. He's got a point, Wake. Look, this town can't take this.
It's me they want. The sooner I get out of here, the sooner you can all get back to life as usual.
I hope you're right. Come on, let me get this door open.
Wait, you got the keys to the bookstore?
Perks of being the sheriff. A girl needs to get around. They're really taking advantage of your presence here, Wake. I heard they're selling a lot of your Alex Casey books.
Right now, I'm not a big fan of my own writing.
Allô?
I don't see Barry.
Bonsoir.
Look, wait, maybe that's him. That's the way to the chopper.
Even though for a town Bright Falls is quite small, as a gameplay location it is huge. There are many buildings and many of them have interiors or had them at some point when earlier story revisions so required. As many large gameplay locations, it has been through countless of revisions and iterations. And unfortunately not all the cool stuff that there once was survived. If you think about that simply in terms of time lost making something that eventually didn't make it in the game, well, it's simply a lot of wasted hours. But actually, all those changes simply served to make it richer and more varied. It's the same way that real towns actually acquire their appearance. You could say that the process has actually given it a small history of its own.
fatty acids are good for your heart.
Okay, it's open. Let's go, Wake. We're almost there. We'll have to go through the basement to get to the parking lot.
Yeah, there's no way going through the crypt will turn out to be a bad idea.
You have the right to answer. Did you call 911?
Guess that one saw the light, huh? You didn't like that one? A tough audience. Well, I got plenty more.
What are the Christmas lights for?
Protection, man! Like garlic against vampires?
Vampires.
The helicopter's just across the parking lot and up the hill. Come on!
The Bright Falls General Store is now my favorite place in the entire world. See this headlamp? It's like a superpower. I can just look at one of those things and
The fire station on the hillside was actually fairly late arrival to the city, the last building that was built. When we settled upon how the journey ends with the helicopter, when we found a good location for the helicopter, it basically meant that we need to find an iconic building to go with it. The hillside was the best spot for the helipad, and when that was decided, everything kind of like locked into place. The fire station looked great, and the fire station yard just kind of like worked perfectly for the fight layout.
This warehouse is filled with gas bottles. They can be used to dispose enemies without using the flashlight at all. Just shoot the bottles so that they explode. But be careful that you don't get hurt by yourself. The same thing applies to the transformer yard which comes after the warehouse. They can use booster bullets to force enemies into electric cables.
Glowed in the night. It was close, but I had to find a way across.
Monsters are skilled professionals.
This area is all about electricity. We're actually in a huge dam complex right now. What we're seeing across the river is the power station. The actual dam is higher up in the mountains, and right now we are in the transformer yard area. Pacific Northwest is filled with places like these power stations, and we just had to have one in the game.
Yeah, and since you do need power to keep the lights on, it's kind of fitting that this is actually a very important part of the story.
Yeah. But it's a little odd, don't you think, for an old lady like Weaver to just manage this whole complex by herself?
Oh, hell no. You know, that's how they roll in Bright Falls. But it doesn't hurt that it's also a visually stunning location.
Yeah, you can really see far from the top, and that's an excellent opportunity for us to flex the engine and show what it can do.
Keep going! We'll give you support!
I recognized the logo on the power plant sign. I'd seen a version of it painted all over the area, signifying hidden caches of supplies.
It's in the well-lit room.
Excuse me?
What you'll need to drive the darkness back. The well-lit room is at the dam. I built the room to keep it safe.
Will it help me find Alice? Will it get me back to the cabin? Fine, let's go. I can get my friends to come back with the helicopter.
Oh, we won't go outside. Never at night. That's rule number 1. You've been breaking the rules, young man, and where has that gotten us, Oh, I have a secret route, a lit route, an old water pipe. Something was damaged at the transformer yard. It's draining all the reserve power. Without it, the pipe will go dark. The power to the yard must be cut.
Let me guess. You want me to do it?
Young man, you're the one who likes to break the rules. I can't be outside in the dark. The kill switch is outside.
Another example of gameplay growing from fairly small designs was this journey to cut the power to transformer yard. We had just a bare minimum bonus version in place for a while. Way goes outside the power plant, flicks a switch, done. But obviously, after a few months of iterating, trying all the cool things, we noticed that, well, of course it works better when we have this combat, build-up, and the fairly simple, but hopefully enjoyable puzzle in the end.
Who designs these things? Who designs these things? The transformer yard went dark and dead. Weaver's water pipe passage should now be good to go.
This way, young man. Follow me.
Oh, ben
Come, come. The
toujours
boat's
Alan
empty
Wake.
now. We're ready to go.
Excellent.
We need to
On
go.
va les ravis.
I knew them both, Tom and Barbara. I had such a crush on him. Such a beautiful man. I was jealous. There was a part of me that was maybe a little glad when she had the accident. And then Tom started writing and woke the darkness up.
J'ai dit, moi je sais pas à quoi je veux, peut-être aller 911, watch your emergency.
Do that. There are no free rides like that.
Aujourd'hui, là, je me suis levé.
In that case, young man,
on va faire.
Perhaps you're a
Je me
smarter man
connecte à
than
GTA
Tom was.
pour aller faire tourner ma roue au casino.
Which looked like her.
Je pogne le véhicule.
But it wasn't. Barbara was sweet. He didn't understand until it was too late. He tried to undo it, wrote himself, her, everything he'd ever written out of the world. He was so famous. And afterward, no one knew. Oh, Tom. He left only one thing behind in my care, in case it happened again. Insurance. He trusted me. Or perhaps used me a little. Tom knew how I felt. Knew I wouldn't refuse him. I built the well-lit
Vous, c'était ce véhicule-là ou l'autre de la semaine passée que t'avais pogné?
We are characters trapped in a story you have written, and none of us will survive to see the end of it if the darkness isn't stopped. She'll twist the story to her own dark ends.
Vous pouvez pas vous plaindre. Disons, le jeu vous a peut-être pas donné de véhicule, mais vous a récompensé gracieusement d'une autre façon.
We have both been touched by the darkness, young man. He saved us both with light, but the darkness stays with you. Leaves a stain.
At least I didn't have to worry about her. She knew how to stay safe.
Cynthia Weaver, like Wake, has been touched by the dark presence, and like Wake, she sees things that other people can't. She's the one who's been helping Wake, she's been leaving the supplies for him, she's been painting the weird messages on the walls, the ones that are revealed by light, and the thing is that nobody else can actually see them, only the people who have been touched like this. To everybody else it seems like she's just, painting with imaginary paint on the walls, but it is actually real. It's a kind of a mystical thing. Cynthia knows a lot about fighting the Taken and the Dark Presence, but she's really not a warrior. She's too crippled for that by her encounter with the strangeness that sort of permeates the area. When she refuses to follow Wake into the darkness and to rescue Barry, she's not being petulant about it, she's just physically unable to enter these areas of uncontrolled darkness. You'd have to drag her there, and if you did, she'd try to kill you. But, let's put that in perspective, because she's guarding a secret she doesn't really understand anything about, because a man on her TV screen told her that she has to, and she never really had any choice about it. So, it's not easy for her either, but, all things considered, I think she does okay.
Il a des grosses papettes. Faut toujours dire les grosses papates.
Barry! Barry!
Oh! Right there! Over here! Hey, Sean!
Hang in there, I'm coming!
Get the hell
Push ça!
almost there. There's an entrance into the dam at the top. What's the plan, Wake?
Well, Weaver's crazy, but she's got something Zane left behind. Something to fix this.
Gee, could you be a little more vague?
Thomas Zane? Seriously? Might as well be Paul Bunyan or Bigfoot.
Yeah, well, he was real.
Let's be careful, okay?
Oh, jeez, I hate this.
Okay, Wake. There's a button over there that opens the door. I think something's broken. Hold the button down so we can get in.
You guys go ahead and find Weaver. She should be in the dam now. I'll have to make it alone through the top.
Okay, Wake. Good luck. Don't get yourself killed.
Ow! Please, be careful.
I'll take good care of Barry, Wake. You just look after yourself.
You gotta be kidding me.
The tornado is one of the few enemies that has stayed pretty much the same throughout the whole project. Of course, it's not a real tornado, but a manifestation of the dark presence. One of the challenges was to create a look for it that the player really wants to turn away and run. We spent plenty of time designing the visual looks and audio so that this is conveyed in the best possible way.
Enough. You will go no further. Stop. Stop now.
Ah, papa! Papa! Non, tu voulais monter ma mêle. Oui! Oui! Chaud, man!
You made it. Well done. I'm glad I was wrong. But it was a foolish chance to take. Don't worry about the noise. We're safe here. I have looked after the well-lit room for many, many years now. There is no shadow in the well-lit room. The power is fail-safe, and all the bulbs are numbered and changed regularly based on their make and model.
Right.
There's an old army base at Raincoat Point. It was active during the Second World War. They operated it.
Previously on I had a hangover. My head was about to explode and the light hurt my eyes. I needed my sunglasses and painkillers to dull the pain. In one of my finer moments of self-deception, I swore to quit drinking.
The New York apartment is one of my favorite locations in the game. From a story point of view, its role is of course to provide the background story for the relationship of Alan and Alice. But to me there is another important aspect as well. You see, it's of course also a homage to the New York setting of the Max Payne games. And my first 3 years here at Remedy were spent working on those games. Now that we're working on Alan Wake with its Pacific Northwest theme style, that's something really different, and so for me the location of New York apartment was really a wonderful chance to sort of touch back upon those old Max Payne days and sort of go back to my roots. It's kind of like picking up an old tool and seeing if you still remember how to use it.
Al, look, I'm saying this as your friend. She's not doing your career any favors by trying to run your life like that, okay? I'll talk to you later, Al. Watch the show!
Hey, honey. Did you watch the show?
I didn't say anything stupid if that's what you want to know.
Okay, Grumpy. You want an aspirin or something?
Are you gonna start with me about drinking now?
You know what? Go back to sleep, Alan.
Alone, in daylight, surrounded by the beauty of the Pacific Northwest landscape. It was hard not to let Del creep
One question that's often asked about games these days is open world or linear.
a delusion.
They are the two extremes of the same scale, and both have their pros and cons. Open world is of course all about the freedom of movement. You can go where you want and do what you want. And that's cool in itself, but by nature it fights against the traditional storytelling. Whereas linear gameplay fits storytelling very well, but that can get a bit constricted at times if the path is too narrow. We always want to tell a meaningful and compelling story, and we didn't want to compromise that in any way. But at the same time, we had lots of different scenarios and beautiful nature, and we didn't want to throw that away either. So what we did was intersperse it between the important story locations. So there is plenty of chance to explore your surroundings and plenty of cool stuff to find if you do.
The darkness had touched me. There was a link between us, always would be. I could feel its presence again, getting closer.
I will kill your wife.
We're nearing the end of the story here. At this point, we pretty much know the answers to most of the major questions, such as what happened to Alice, where did the manuscript come from, and so forth. All that remains for Wake now is to make his final run into the heart of darkness and make his final sacrifice. He's said goodbye to his best friend. He's not really expecting to come back from this one, but he's willing to do that to save Alice. I'm not really sure if you could call Wake a heroic character as such. You know, he doesn't really, he doesn't have that square-jawed look or anything. But when it's all said and done, I really don't think he's a coward.
What the hell? Nice to see you, too.
As Wake continues towards the conclusion of his story, of this story, we had the chance to create more outlandish sequences, more wilder places to really amp up the action. This field filled with burning wreckage was great, and I hope you actually find and you see the possessed monster truck. He's been around different locations during the development, but I'm happy he finally found a place to actually be here amidst all the carnage. To be honest, the development this final stretch of the journey wasn't quite as smooth as we'd hoped. The environment, the scope of this area east to the Cauldron Lake is massive, and we had problems in actually polishing everything to the degree we wanted. That being said, it's been great that, for example, here in the junkyard, we managed to create the massive swinging crane to hang above the fight, and we did chance to create the burning piles of wreckage on the hillside.
I told Barry my plan back in the well-lit room. I'd acted as if I knew what I was doing. I didn't. I was operating on the shifting logic of a dream. I had to fight my way to the lake through the horrors of the night. I had to flick an old battered light switch imbued with childhood magic. I had to write a happy ending to a horror story. I had to save my wife from the dark prison she was being held in.
I will never give her to you.
Way to the lake through the horrors of the night. I had to flick an old battered light switch imbued with childhood magic. I had to write a happy ending to a horror story. I had to save my wife from the dark prison she was being held in.
I will never give her to you.
Allô? Ouais? Ah, bien.
C'est gros.
Ça, c'est l'émission de ce soir, ça, je le vois.
C'est
I could
ça,
see
ça
nearer
c'est une
peak in
king
the
mission.
distance. That's where Cauldron Lake was.
La vie de Joël 2.0. Non. Quelqu'un t'a pété dans le speedrun? Quoi, t'as 1 heure de retard? Oh, c'est beaucoup là. C'est quoi qu'ils font, genre, pour être aussi vite? Ils doivent sûrement skip des shit. Pas important. Ah ouais. Ah, aïe, aïe, aïe. It's a trap! It's a trap! It's a fucking trap!
Oh oh,
911, opérateur.
ouais.
Tu joues là? Non. Ben ça dit oui, tu joues à 911. Hein?
C'est pour ça que c'était midi.
C'est pour ça que c'était midi.
C'est pas ça que Steam
dit.
Steam, c'est différent.
C'est pas vrai! Je le savais, c'est ça que j'allais dire parce que je check Phil Alan Wake.
Alan Wake?
Ça va.
Ben ouais.
Un petit du matou. Vous partagez? Non, non, anyway, j'étais déjà. C'est chill.
Le matou en live, c'est excellent.
Je vais aller voir. Ouais,
Yo, c'est quoi ton jeu, Gab?
911 Operator. Ouais, tu contrôles des unités de police, pompiers, puis ambulances, genre.
The nature of the dark presence definitely helped us when we had to make things, when you actually just have to, just bigger and louder. A player is fairly familiar with the idea of trekking through a haunted forest or dark forest by this point in the game, but we had a chance to, just when we needed, to throw entire boats and train carriages to the player, just creating total havoc.
J'ai une seule envoyé genre police parce que
T'imagines-tu que ce jeu-là, c'est genre la vraie vie, man? Que le monde, sans le savoir, il envoie des ambulanciers à des...
Ah ouais, ok,
Yo! Là, on y pense, en ce moment, là, peut-être que genre... Vu qu'il y a une personne qui est pas rentrée puis que t'es bon à ce jeu-là, en ce moment, c'est comme si tu répondrais automatiquement aux appels. Yo, c'est clair que c'était une pute qui sortait du bord, là.
Envoyer une ambulance, là, une police juste pour voir qu'est-ce qui s'est passé. Sur chemin Chambly, il y a un dude qui a full mal au ventre, ça c'est peut-être grave.
Ah, ça c'est ma blonde qui s'en vient, elle vient de finir.
Ouais, check, c'est juste là en plus. Ouais, je dis cégep en plus.
Aïe aïe.
I 911, what's your emergency?
911, what's your emergency?
Yo, what the fuck? Oh, qu'il vient de se mettre à mouiller de même. What? Yo, je trouve même pas ma pointe.
C'est
J'ai
qui,
pas
hein?
le goût de fermer mon arcade, ça rentre dans le
Il y en annonçait même pas.
Et aujourd'hui, à job, il mouillait en plus.
Ah, pas moi.
Ouais.
Ben moi, je travaille dehors, tabarnak. Fait que quand il mouille, ça me tombe sur la
rapport
tête.
dans mon
T'habites
point,
dans
moi,
quel
il y avait...
Ben, je travaille pas à côté de ta job, Joël. Je travaille aussi à métalliage.
Ah. Je travaille chez Métalliage dans le fond.
Je l'avais Chris, me semble, moi, il a pas mouillé.
Tabarnak, à ma tête, pareil.
Je travaille avec Maël.
Ça serait épique, man. Du jour au lendemain, je vois la gueule de Maël qui se pointe parce qu'il est pas content du salaire de métalliage. Je pense que j'ai dit, hey Maël, je vais pouvoir filmer le pote devant toi maintenant. Vous, puis superviseur. Yo, pour vrai, je suis mad, man. Yo, mon esti de lighter.
I needed to get the generator running.
Turn back now. Do as you're told.
This is the final battle in the game. You can actually finally face the tornado and fight it. We didn't want to create a complicated puzzle, but this was more about the experience. We wanted to make this a memorable moment in the game. If you look carefully, you can actually see Barbara Jagger standing in the middle of the tornado.
Ok, ouais. Avec des chips barbecue. Gros tas.
You can't win.
Boiler ton pizza.
You will fail. You can't win. You will fail. It's all over your head. You're making this up.
My fear? It's your fear. Why aren't you afraid?
You're not Alice. Turn the lights on now. Where's the clicker? What did you do with it?
At this point it's pretty much over and the Dark Princess knows that. It's still trying a couple of dirty tricks though, like dressing up as Wake's wife, but Wake isn't really buying it. I mean, you know, he knows who he married and this thing here just isn't it. The Dark Princess is kind of desperate, as you can tell. Wake's manuscript is one of our main storytelling tools in the game, and it has a lot of power. It's not just about a couple of words on the page, but at the same time writing those pages was really difficult because we don't have a lot of space there and you still need to be able to tell these sort of little stories with a beginning and an end, and that was really challenging for us.
I like to think that the manuscript page is defined. And that's it for the commentary. Thank you for hanging around all the way to the end. I hope it answered any questions that you might have had after completing the game, and maybe it showed you a bit how Remedy works. Thank you.
What are you doing, Alan? Stop! Put the light back on!
It wasn't true. Nothing like that had ever happened.
You're not my Barbara.
Tom, let me go.
Now you will never get her back. I am much older than you. Older than your first work of art. I will find a new face to wear. Someone else to dream me free.